The NonProfit MBA purpose is to provide new business insights and fresh creative ideas for executive directors and their teams that will help them improve their organization. Here is your host, Stephen Halasnik.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Halasnik. I'll be your host for today's NonProfit MBA podcast, and I am the co-founder of Financing Solutions. And we are the largest provider in the United States of lines of credit to small nonprofits. And if you're interested in learning about a line of credit for your organization, please visit our website at nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking with Shahar Brukner from Impala. And Shahar is the founder and CRO of Impala, which works on these challenging daily issues in regards to fundraising. Impala uses AI to help nonprofits and foundations turn fragmented grant-making data into actionable insights, making it easier to identify stronger funding opportunities and to improve decision-making. And Shahar, welcome to today's NonProfit MBA podcast.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Good. So today's topic is we're going to be talking about why more fundraising data has not led to better fundraising decisions. So right off the bat, why is that true? Why is fundraising data not led to better fundraising decisions? I mean, to me, more data is always better than less.
Yeah. So, generally before starting Impala, Stephen, I agreed with you. And I think raw data is not the same thing as direction and as intelligence. Actually, we are living in a time, and I'm sure that you are seeing it with the other guests that you're speaking with, that the average nonprofit has more data or can collect more data in a very easy way. These data points are stored in a CRM, other system of records like email, Slack, profiles like platforms like Impala. But the more data that you have and the more fragmented it is, it's actually harder and more challenging to bring it together into a direction, into a vector of decision. And I can tell you that we've been working with dozens of nonprofits from all shapes and sizes, from large universities to local shops. And I'm hearing this thing again and again, every time in the magnitude of the organization. But think about it. If you're a huge university and you now have information and data about tens of thousands of alumni and other funders and events that are happening and what other universities are doing, how do you bring it together into a decision process is actually harder, not easier. So I think that's, in my opinion, the main answer, but there's also solutions for it.
What does Impala do?
Yeah, so Impala is a data platform specifically for the philanthropic sector. There's a lot of public data out there, starting with the 990s, for example, but going to websites and news and many other sources. What Impala does is to collect all of this public data and put it into a very organized and well-structured platform for everyone in philanthropy. Two main customer bases are nonprofits on the one hand and grant makers and philanthropic foundations on the other hand. The first thing we did is create this data set. So just as an example, we have scraped every 990 of every nonprofit and every philanthropic foundation since 2014 and packaged all of that data in profiles for every organization. So whether you know it or not, your nonprofit already has a profile on Impala. Same thing for a foundation. I think the special thing about it is that it's not just a database. Impala then built a suite of products on top of that data that cater to very specific needs of real professionals in the field. When we're thinking about nonprofits, we have two main products. One is what we call ecosystems research, which is the ability to define an entire philanthropic landscape or market that you care about. So let's say arts and culture in Boston, youth education in the Midwest, whatever it is that you want. And we will immediately show you every nonprofit that is working there, every philanthropic foundation, that is working there? How do they work together? Who's growing? Who's shrinking? Trends across time? We immediately give you intelligence and not just data about the market that you are operating in. And we can speak in a second about how it helps fundraisers. The second product is what we call our funder prospecting product. And the idea there is quite simple. We have seen time and time again that philanthropy runs on relationships. So we will rank every funder in the United States based on their affinity to you, their capacity to give, and whether they have a relationship to you or not through real people, and then show you the path on how to connect. So for example, if I want to connect with the Stephen Foundation, I might see that someone on my board sat with Stephen on another board, and maybe they know each other and how they can connect. So you can think about it a bit like LinkedIn for the nonprofit sector. And again, it's about taking this huge amount of data that we have in the end at our fingertips, but packaging it and fine-tuning it to a very specific workflow that people actually have, in this case, unlocking a relationship that can help them.
So if you're a nonprofit, and I'm a little unclear how scraping data from other nonprofit 990 is going to help you. Is that not what they do? If you're a nonprofit, are you using more of the finding the grant makers part of this platform?
So we have both sides of the platform, of the sector. We have both profiles for nonprofits and for foundations. I'll actually tell you my personal story. I created Impala after I created my own nonprofit, which gives scholarships to young students. At first, I was asking myself pretty basic questions like, who's giving to what I'm doing, how much, when, and how can I connect with them? Then I didn't have an answer. Today, I can just go to a profile of any philanthropic foundation in the country, see every grant that they have given, who's on their board and how I'm connected to them, who else they are giving to, and maybe I can see organizations that are a bit like me, the size of the grant, if there's instructions on how to apply, I'll see that as well. So all of this information is now packaged in an extremely easy and accessible way. Then, if I'll take you to the products that we have, sometimes I know about the funder that I want to approach, and then I can go to the profile on Impala. But in many cases, there are more than 200,000 philanthropic foundations in the United States. I just don't know that they even exist. So I'll use their ecosystem research, and I'll say that I want to see funders of scholarships in New York City. I'll see every funder. Now, of course, I'll show you the top 20. Everybody knows them, the biggest foundations in the country. But then when you start to go down, you suddenly see a family foundation without a website, without any kind of public footprint beside the 990 that gives to 6 organizations that are doing something like I'm doing. They should be immediately on my radar. I don't only know now that they give, I also know who's on the board and I know how much they give. So now the last question is, how do I connect with them? And that's where we created the relationship engine that will start showing me how I can connect to them through either existing funders of mine, board members, advisors, people on my team, and so forth. So we wanted to take the entire prospecting to ask workflow and augment it and enrich it with public data, so nonprofits don't have to spend the time on collecting it and analyzing it and so forth.
So what have you noticed how nonprofits are, what are they doing now in the age of AI, which is relatively new, in regards to data? How are some of the best nonprofits that you've worked with? How are they using it? How are you using it in your product? Where is it headed? Let's take one at a time. That is, what are some of the best nonprofits? What are they doing with the AI age, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I can tell you. I just before this call, I came from a conversation with a big nonprofit, which I will consider an expert in how they work with data, and this is what we're seeing across the board. Good nonprofits today understand that AI allows them to do 2 major things with regards to their data. One is to consolidate it in one place that is easily queryable, and you can ask whatever questions you want, and I'll speak about it in a second. And the second thing is to use this data in a very customized way with regards to their donors. So let's break it up one by one. Think about a nonprofit that has already an established data infrastructure. It probably consists of some kind of fundraising CRM, sometimes with millions of data points. It might have something like Impala that gives it a lot of information about peers and other foundations that are funding. They might use some kind of wealth screening tool. They obviously have their email, maybe the Slack of the organization. They want to know that the CEO met with this prospective funder yesterday and things like that. Before AI, most of the time that they have spent was about maintaining and keeping this data in a workable fashion. A lot of time, a lot of manual work, something that creates real burnout. But consolidating it to one thing was something that was usually focused on very much on a project. Okay, we want to focus about this region or about these funders. What can we learn about them? And then we consolidate it from everywhere. AI today, specifically if you work with tools like Claude or Codex that allow you to connect all of your systems into one place, allow you to basically take all of these data points, and this is something that we're doing in the company internally as well, and bring it into one place where you can start querying it. So now a question like, I want to speak with Steven and everybody that he knows becomes extremely easy, okay, because it can analyze the data from pretty much every direction. So consolidation is the first piece. And consolidation is not a thing that you are done, that you did once and now you're done. It's something that you constantly do about specific projects that you are interested in working about. And the second thing is obviously customization. Now, if I can look, or hey, let's say that I wanted to customize an email for one of my donors, I would have wanted to go into the CRM, see the history of the call, internalize it in my mind, and then write an email that says something like, "Hi, Steven, we last connected in April of 2026. It was great seeing you in that event. You should know that since then we have done A, B, and C, etc., etc." But you need the full context. AI has that full context already, and it's much, much better than us in connecting data points from different sources. So outreach can be, in my opinion, it's a game changer for the way that you can customize a message. Obviously, within the impact that you have, the organization's work. So the two main things to answer your question that good organizations are doing today is consolidation and customization. I would assume that if you'd ask me that question 6 months from now, the answer would probably be about starting building things on their own. Specific assets that the nonprofit can use for its very specific needs. And this is something that we're actually starting to play within Impala as well, allowing people to use our data to build whatever they want.
So, what people have used Impala for in the past is taking their own data out of CRM systems, uploading it, and then combining that with the other data that Impala is scraping or using or found, and then they're coming up with a relationship plan, so to speak, or a grant application plan. Is that accurate to say?
It is accurate. I will say that most of the nonprofits that we are working with, before they're giving us their own data, they first of all take pause in understanding what they can do just with public data. Obviously, integrating your own data with an external platform is something that takes time. It's something that needs to happen on a continuous manner, and people are not jumping to it right away. We wanted to create a much easier access point. So first of all, we show people what you thought you knew about public data and your area and your donors. We can show you much, much more. So most people come first and say, okay, now I see the world. Now I see my ecosystem. Now I see the relationships that I have. For most organizations, even between you and I, it's something that gives them work for the next year. Okay, you don't need to bring us your data. If people are more mature in how they're doing their fundraising, have more resources, then their data would flow in immediately as well. I can give you a real example. We started working with this large university here in the city. We already mapped about 4,000 connections from their board to funders that are not funding them yet. It doesn't mean that each one of those 4,000 will fire away and we give the money, but it's a lot of work that you can start with. They said, okay, before we start this big approach, let us give you a list of about 1,000 super alumni, their words, not mine, people that are extremely connected to us. They're not on our board. They're like quasi-advisors. They added that from those 1,000 people, we enriched the platform with 2,000 more connections that they can use. So now instead of starting with 4,000, you start with 6,000 and you're off to the races. The results are pretty amazing, but you are right in how you define how people are using Impala. Yeah.
So let's take a scenario where you have a smaller nonprofit and they're new to Impala, right? They come in and let's say they stay with you for, let's say they're 3 years into it right now of using Impala. Like, so you started off, they start off and you watch them. How do they start off using Impala? And then 3 years later, after they've used Impala a lot, how has that changed? How has their behavior changed on how they're using it?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I say that most small nonprofits that come to us in the beginning have two concepts in mind. One is there are big funders out there. I know a little about them, but I need to understand basically what are they doing, should I be on the radar, and how to connect with them. And the second thing is they are looking for open applications, requests for proposal, things that they can put their work to now. So if we know that the Stephen Foundation is giving a grant for something, I want to apply. The first thing that we do is we answer the first need and we tell them don't run after the second need. It's not where your focus should be. So let me explain. When they come in, we will be able to provide them like that a lot of the information about the funders that they already care about. So we're immediately saving them a lot of time, and we see what usually happens is that they will create lists of funders that they were already interested in and start downloading data, putting it into their own systems, building things with it, or just acting on it. In many cases, we also saw from organizations that the moment they got this data, they understood that they have some kind of way in, pick up the phone, starting working on a grant, and 3 months later, we hear that they have received a grant and already returned the investment on Impala quite significantly. The second piece of it is, as I said, is to tell them don't go after the RFPs. So open applications, submissions, requests for proposals, in my opinion, as a fundraiser, let alone as somebody who runs Impala, is a trap. So today we have information about all foundations. We know which foundations have open grant applications. Out of 100% of them, only 9% offer applications, open applications. So you're already taking 91%, putting them aside. Now those 9%, as you probably imagine, are the most competitive, have the most competitive grant process because they're open to everybody. So you're putting yourself in a very small pool, in an extremely competitive pool, and as you probably won't be surprised to hear, not every open grant application fits everybody. Some grants applications are for arts, some are for youth education, some are for climate change, whatever. But the idea here is that the pool is much, much smaller than you think. The problem is that you have work right in front of you. I can write a grant application and submit it, and hopefully I'll get money. We see that the return on investment in that method is extremely low. If the foundation doesn't know you, never heard about you, and suddenly an application lands on their desk, the chances of you receiving money, I wouldn't say zero, but extremely low. So what happens is that this whole flow is something that requires them to waste time, waste efforts, and waste resources, and the end result is not that positive. So we immediately tell them, stop. Don't go after grant applications. Here are relationships that you can already use. Okay, so instead of going after the Ford or Bloomberg or MacArthur foundations that have these huge open grant applications that are extremely competitive, go after the Shahar Brukner Foundation. It's a small family foundation. Average grant size is $15,000. Okay, and you should know every year they give to about 4 to 6 new organizations. It's about 40% of their portfolio. So definitely there's an open avenue there. The problem is that they don't have a website, they don't have an open application, and you need to get a way in. How can you get in? Through your board member, through an existing donor. Maybe one of your existing donors already overlaps with them and can connect you. So the idea is there's an element of education here, Stephen, of pushing them away from what seems shiny and easy, but is a big waste of time, to something that is a bit more deep and authentic and focuses on relationships, but the results at the end are good. One example that I always say that seems to click with people in non-profits is the comparison to LinkedIn. People that are applying to a job, when you see, there's a job available at LinkedIn, you can see how many people applied, 15,000. The chances of you now sitting on the top of that pile and some HR representative picking your resume and, charmed away by it and asking you to come in is very low. Many of those things are, yes, they are open processes, but the relationships always play a part. So we want to transition them there. 3 years later, to answer your question, people are focusing on relationships. They understand that relationships is the way to go. And they understand also one thing, that sometimes the biggest fundraising growth that can happen to them is from their own funders. So we will show you the median first, second, and third year grant, for example, of every funder. First year, they'll give you 10,000. Then if they like you and the relationship is good, it will jump to 40,000. Third year, 56,000. So, but you're still receiving the 10K. Why? Because you didn't even know that you can ask for more. You didn't even know that they're growing it. So we'll also highlight to you the potential in your existing funder base. And in my opinion, this is by far the best way to go. Of course, there are things that are not exactly like that. If you're doing a capital campaign, you have to find a new big funder that will put their name on it. Okay, that's a different thing. But day-to-day grant making and fundraising in foundation land is definitely reliant on relationships, and we want to push you there as much as possible.
The relationship between Impala and a nonprofit is I don't want to say consultative, but are people 99.9% of the time just using the data that Impala has, or are they calling your offices and saying, how else can I, get to what I'm trying to get to?
Yeah. So when we built the company and the platform from day one, we said to ourselves we should work very hard and the product would be tested on how much it does not require us to hold their hand. Now, granted, it takes time to understand how we think about the world. Okay, it takes time to tell yourself, okay, I don't want to focus on the new open submission, but to focus on relationships. And therefore, when people join Impala, we built a very robust and human customer success service that would help them understand how to use the platform. But I'm happy to say that we also built a good product that does not require them to call us every once in a while. It's something that is, as I said before, it's not just that the data is there and you play with it. We have built it into very, very specific workflows. So research a sector, find the connection, see who your board is connected to, find the connection between any point A to any point B. The platform is pretty self-explanatory. We have now also added a new customer success AI agent that can help you to understand how to navigate the platform. We're seeing that many tickets from customers are solved by speaking with the agent. It's an Impala called Easy, and it's working great. But I would say that to answer your question, Stephen, it's definitely not a consultative approach. I do think, and we're seeing it, actually, we are working with a lot of consultants. A lot of consultants are Impala customers. And again, from some of the biggest shops in the country to much more local shops, it is on our radar to provide consultants some kind of marketplace on top of Impala so they can offer their services. So now you need someone to write a grant for you on something that you found, contact Shahar. You want someone to help you define your own ecosystems, call Rachel or whatever. But so far, I would say most of our users can self-serve.
So, today's topic is having to do how people have gotten more and more data and it's not helping them, right? And we touched upon it a little bit earlier, but let's dive a little bit more into that. Is it I'm assuming is because your premise is that it's really based, this is still comes down to relationships. And go ahead.
I'll even take it. It's not the relationships is already, it has a weight. And the weight here is that I'll take you 2 steps back on how we thought about it. Data doesn't equal intelligence. Okay. It just doesn't. I can, think about the salesperson. I can give them all of the details about 10,000 million prospects that they can sell to, email, where they work, their phone number, whatever they want, okay? But if I don't tell them, for example, how much budget the prospective buyer has or what industry they work in, it's just hard to start understanding what to do with all of this data. So the first thing that we said is that data doesn't equal intelligence. And then the question is, what kind of intelligence, which is, again, digested, packaged data that is connected to a real workflow, what kind of intelligence do nonprofits and fundraisers need? We had our own hunch. We are also people that are coming from nonprofits, but we didn't trust our hunch. We actually created several advisory committees with some of the top fundraisers in the country. And we asked them, what do you need? The first thing that came up, without even without doubt, is that we asked them, what is your most powerful asset in terms of fundraising? All of them told us without any kind of something out of the ordinary, which is, what they said is people who care about us, our donors, our board, foundations that are already giving to us. Okay, so how would you utilize it? So they say, we have a quarterly board meeting, last 30 minutes are saved for the fundraising piece, and then the chief development officer will come in and will say, Stephen, my dear board member, who do you know that you can connect me with? And Stephen is, he's a rich person, he knows people. He'll say, Shahar, this is not such a good question. I know 5,000 people. So you leave the meeting with the board being frustrated because they weren't utilized and they're here to help you. You feel bad because you know that Stephen knows a lot of people, but you don't know who. So we turned it on its head and started building towards that intelligence. I can tell you, we didn't speak about what we're offering philanthropic foundations, but that's another angle. Tie the whole workflow around due diligence and how public data can help that. So the idea here is to turn huge amounts of data, and actually the more data we spoke about in the beginning, the more data, the more you're confused, to intelligence. Does that make sense?
It does. So, and I'll have to, this is the last question I'm going to ask, but can people get this data of what they're looking through ChatGPT or any of the other platforms, AI platforms?
Yeah, so some of it, yes. Some of this data is becoming available through those platforms. I will say that, I'll say 2 things regarding that. First, the context window is much smaller than what we can offer. So you'll ask for all of the grants that the Ford Foundation gave in the last 10 years. This is something that on Impala you can get in 1 click. You'll see how ChatGPT starts to limp a bit. Are you sure you want all of the 1,000? It will take me about such and such time. I need you to give me documents in order to get that. However, if you ask, what are the top 10 grants, you'll get it in a second. But in many cases, you want to see the full breadth of what you're researching. And the second thing, again, it can give you the data, but it will not be smart about how to connect it into real intelligence and into a real direction. If you'll ask it, how am I connected to Stephen, for example, this will not be anything close to the kind of answer that we can give you, because yes, it knows that there's Stephen in organization A, but then it cannot scan all of the other people that sit on other boards of other foundations. We already did that. We have a database of about 16 million people. So some of this data is available through these other engines, but very, very far from giving you the intelligence that you need.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I'd like to thank so very much Shahar Brukner from Impala for coming on today's podcast. And if you like today's podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. Also, if you're looking for a line of credit for your organization, please feel free to reach out on our website to learn more, nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Shahar, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
They can either email me at Shahar, Shahar, at impala.digital, or just go to our website, www.impala.digital, and there's a get in touch button there, very easy. All of them get to me, so you'll receive an answer for me.
Yeah, great. Thanks for coming on today.
Stephen, thank you so much.
So I just want to remind all our listeners out there that, and I say this after every podcast because it's heartfelt from me, and I'm sure from Bahar as well, Shahar, I'm sorry, and that, every day you guys are out there in the front line trying to really help the world be a better place, and we both thank you for that. But just keep in mind that you're no good to your employees, your cause, your family, and yourself if you're burnt out. And so, every day you need to think about yourself and think, what do I need to do today to stay energized? Rather that be going for a walk, rather it be exercising, rather it be grabbing a cup of coffee with a friend, or whatever it is that helps you kind of keep that energy going for the long term, because solving the world's problems is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we need you. So other than that, I want to thank you for listening to the Nonprofit MBA podcast. Have a fantastic day, everybody.